Hello, we're back. I am going through this dragon's motion to be dismissed from Justin Baldoni's lawsuit and sharing with you all the most memorable bits. But I just had a brain fart or a light bulb moment or both. In his motion to be dismissed, he alleged that Justin Baldoni destroyed his wife. And I did not put two and two together that earlier today I made a different video where Baldoni's attorney said the same term, that he's been destroyed by Blondie. Interesting how they are all speaking the same language. Destruction! Destroyed! Destroyed! Back to his motion to dismiss, where we left off in my last video. The Wayfarer parties have asserted a grab bag of claims against Mr. Reynolds in their first amended complaint. They detail them all. Despite its length, the first amended complaint only alleges a few isolated acts by Mr. Reynolds. Quote, her publicist, Leslie Sloan, went so far as to propagate malicious stories portraying Baldoni as a sexual predator, a term Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, also used to describe Baldoni when he called Baldoni's own agent. Also, Baldoni later received word that during the premiere of his movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, Reynolds approached Baldoni's agency, namely an executive at WME, and expressed his deep disdain for Baldoni, suggesting the agency was working with a sexual predator. Interestingly, of note, Scarlett Johansson's ex-husband does not deny the predator allegation, but his motion says that that is protected speech. We'll get to that in a second, but let me finish this section. Apart from those two statements, the totality of the First Amended complaint's allegations against Mr. Reynolds are that Mr. Reynolds demanded that the Wayfarer parties publicly apologize for so-called mistakes during production of the film, was present during a meeting at the apartment he shares with Miss Lively, at which he praised Miss Lively's version of a scene in Mr. Baldoni's presence, allegedly contributed some writing of his own to the script, admonished Mr. Baldoni for asking about Miss Lively's weight and demanded that a scene be removed from the film, attended a meeting with Miss Lively to address her allegations of sexual harassment on set and demanded that Mr. Baldoni apologize for his conduct, unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media, and included the Nice Pool character in Deadpool and Wolverine, that the First Amended complaint alleges was meant to satirize Mr. Baldoni's persona as a woke feminist. Then they go on to explain why the claims fail under both New York and California law. He does not make a single true claim of defamation, he alleges. Then they come and mention some court cases that back up his claims that predator is a matter of opinion. They cite a ruling saying a court in this district has explained, quote, courts have recognized that words like scum, predators, greedy crooks, and criminals preying on street art culture are vague, imprecise statements of hyperbole considered non-actionable opinion. Winning. Fair play, Ryan Reynolds, fair play. Use of colorful language such as predator, victimized, or face of evil are not actionable in and of themselves, another ruling reads. Even if the predator statements were verifiable as fact, they are not actionable as defamation because they are substantially true, he, through his lawyer, adds. The First Amended complaint includes numerous references to conduct that a reasonable observer could well consider predatory. Now they're bringing up his own words to bite him in the booty. Quote, I'm sure I have crossed boundaries and lines in my teens and 20s, not even thinking about it simply because of the corn I was consuming. I grew up and I had an addiction to corn. I was introduced to corn at 10 years old, formed these neural pathways in my brain, and it caused me to see the world very differently, said him in the past. No one ever sits down and teaches us about consent. We learn it through corn. It would be perverse to permit Mr. Baldoni to build an entire brand complete with a podcast, TED Talk, and books off his confessions of repeatedly mistreating women, only to turn around and sue Mr. Reynolds for $400 million for simply pointing out in private what Mr. Baldoni has bragged about in public. Additionally, it should be dismissed because they can't prove malice, which is a very important part in a defamation lawsuit. Malice comes into play because he's not an average citizen. He is a public figure. Therefore, it must be factored. The bar for defamation is higher for celebrities and public figures. Jesus Christ, they go on and on about the whole predator of it all so much. Then they get into the whole business aspects of it. The Wayfarer Party complaint fails to state a claim of false light. Similarly, the complaint fails to state a claim of civil extortion, he alleges, making similar arguments for all of the other claims. Additionally, his motion to dismiss alleges that the Wayfarer parties have failed to allege any damages. The First Amended complaint repeatedly asserts that the Wayfarer parties were harmed and prays for a damage award of at least $400 million, but nowhere explains how or how much any of the Wayfarer parties were actually damaged by any of the alleged conduct in the complaint. Well, I'm sure that would be explained at trial. They also bring up the fact that their complaint mentions information and belief a lot, inferring that he doesn't have that much proof, no receipts against him. That's why he should be dismissed from the case. Whoo! And he is now asking Baldoni and Steve Sarowitz, his billionaire co-founder, to pay his attorney's fees. Oh my God. And we got through the entire motion to dismiss. In response to that, a rep for Reynolds released a statement tripling, quadrupling down that says, quote, "The entirety of Mr. Baldoni's case appears to be based on Mr. Reynolds allegedly privately calling Mr. Baldoni a predator. But here's the problem. That is not defamation unless they can show that Mr. Reynolds did not believe that statement to be true. The complaint doesn't allege that. In fact, it suggests the opposite, that Mr. Reynolds genuinely believes Mr. Baldoni is a predator. Mr. Reynolds has a First Amendment right to express his opinion of Mr. Baldoni, which should be comforting to a group of people who have repeatedly called Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds bullies and other names over the past year. The claims filed against Mr. Reynolds are simply a list of grievances attempting to shame him for being the man Mr. Baldoni has built his brand pretending to be. A man who is confident enough to listen to the woman in his life. We look forward to this lawsuit being dismissed and to collecting on Steve Sarowitz's $100 million pledge by recovering Mr. Reynolds' costs and attorney's fees incurred to toss this frivolous case. So far, Justin Baldoni's attorney has not responded to Ryan Reynolds' motion to be dismissed from the lawsuit, but as soon as I get that, I will share it with you all. Until then, we have closed this chapter in the never-ending It Ends With Us saga. Thoughts on him wanting his attorney's fees paid? Thoughts on all of the claims and allegations and everything we've learned in this part 2 video? Let's discuss it all in the comments section.